Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain.
We all have sorrow.
But if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. For it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. You just call on me, brother. 'Cause we all need somebody. I just might have a problem, and we all need somebody to lean on. So please swallow your pride. If I have faith, you need to borrow. For no one can fill those in your needs if you won't let them show. So just call on me, brother. 'Cause we all need somebody. I just might have a problem, and we all need somebody to lean on. And if there is a load you have to bear, and you think that you just can't carry, I'm right up the road, and I'll share your load if you just call me. Come on down, come on down. You got to come on, babe. Reach out and I want you to come on now. I'm here for you. Come on now, call me, baby. Oh, when you need a friend, come on and lean on Come on, lean on me. When you need a friend, when you need your brother, oh, when you need your sister, when you need some loving, come on and call me. Call me. Lean on me. Lean on me. Lean on me.
Ah, that was good. But I'll start out with something that you may have heard. This is ancient wisdom. I think it comes from the Zen Buddhist tradition. But the saying is that you could never walk into the same river twice. Because even though you're at the same river bank, the river has changed. The river's not there. You don't know what's upstream. Something else has come in. There's always new things coming in, changing it. Plus the current might change because of something upstream. The bank might be a tiny bit different. There may have been less rain, more rain. The river's different in its form, and also it's different because of its composition, and we think it's going to be the same thing. And if we think it's going to be the same thing, we will be disappointed. I'll get to that in a moment. But the thing that teaches me this really profoundly is going to CBEC. At CBEC, I am profoundly aware that you can never enter the same camp twice. Some things will stay the same, some activities will stay the same, some experiences will be the same. So who's gone to CBEC? Then you'll recognize this. Bum, 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 bum. For those of you that have not been to CBEC, that's the sound of the tires going over the wooden bridge. It's old, you have to go slow. It's only one lane, and boom, 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 boom. And there's something that happens as soon as I hear it. Something shifts because I've heard it so many times, and it clicks a meditative experience within me. It sets a tone that has stayed the same so far. I say so far because I may get there some CBEC to camp, and they've replaced the bridge with something new and modern. Could be. At CBEC, we have different people and some of the same people. We have different contributions, different activities, and some of the same activities. We had a whole bunch of new people this year. How many of you were there for the first time? Ah, yeah, it was cool. Glad to have you show up. The lesson for me is that if I expect the same CBEC that I had the CBEC before, I will be so attached to what was, I can't appreciate what is. And what happens at CBEC is a miracle and continues to be a miracle for me, and I think for some others. Let me give you a little story, a little background. When I first came to this center had been putting on CBEC for almost 25 years prior to my arrival, and they had ways of doing things. And they were good ways of doing things. But every year we'd tweak it just a little bit. Like we moved when the talent show was. I'm just going to give you some stupid stuff. But just moving when the talent show is made it easier on everybody because it's fret time until you get up there and do your thing. So having more time to fret really made them appreciate getting on stage at the end. I mean, we just did little tweaks here, little tweaks there, and worked on things and did things until, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, I thought we had reached perfection. To me, the experience was absolute heaven. It was heavenly. People were together. People that wouldn't normally sit together were hanging out together. Everything seemed to build. People were having wonderful breakthrough experiences. I thought we had arrived. And I actually had one of those weird thoughts that I'm glad didn't come true, but I sat on the grass in front of the big house that all the staff stay in, and I told Eric Desodell, who was the music director at the time, I said, if I don't make it home, it's okay. I may die because I feel like I've done all I can and we've finally produced a wonderful CBEC. I may be complete. I mean, because I honestly had the feeling of completion. It was like, that's good. And I wasn't being fatalistic. I wasn't being sad. I was just like, how's it get any better? I might be done. Spoiler alert, I didn't die. And I showed up again the next year, and the next year, and the next year, and good got gooder. Now I wait every year to see how CBEC will be perfect. It will be perfect in its own way. I expect perfection, and my experience is perfection, even though it's totally different than the year before, in new and fabulous ways. One of the most significant experiences for me this year was having a reunion of our Inward Journey group, those that were at CBEC, and just having a chance to catch up and talk deeply and really share in a deep way. Because sometimes if you've only got a week together, you can sort of stay here, and it's kind of nice to like, oh, this is what's happening for me. This is where I am. This is what's going on. It was perfect. It was perfect. So what I have learned from all of that is that stepping into the CBEC experience for 30 years has taught me that CBEC is not the place. It's not the place. Because other people go to that same place and have a totally different experience than what we do. CBEC's not the place, and it's not the people, even though we have great people, fabulous people. But new people show up all the time. I showed up new. Abigail showed up new for the first time this year. 3 years ago, Patrick showed up and introduced new things. Everyone is always showing up and doing their part, and they may go. Carmen was there for years. People would show up, do their thing, and yet since that moment for me, with my awareness that it was now perfect, perfection has used whatever resources were at hand to create perfection. And the perfection came out of CBEC consciousness, not out of CBEC personality. It's not personal. It's way beyond personal. CBEC for me is a consciousness of heaven, and that keeps creating a heavenly experience for those who want to tap into it. So the river that is consciousness is CBEC, and yet you go to the same shore, which is a campground on the Hood Canal. And people who drive to that campground on Hood Canal step into a river that is a perfect river of consciousness, and yet it is fed upstream by different experiences, different gifts, different things that people want to do and contribute, and ideas, and they're different, but the consciousness is now one of heaven. If you come here next week, this location will have totally different water in it. And yet the river that is the Center for Spiritual Living will be 1/2 mile north at the Mountaineers. And by the way, I just want to say, please, I'll just stop right here. Please check your program, see how to get there, follow directions, because it took me forever to figure out how to get there. Even though I would drive down Sandpoint and I'd say, there's the Mountaineers. Now, if I was on a horse, I just would have crossed. I would have crossed the sidewalk and gone down that little bit of gravel, and I'd have been there. But teaching my car to do that was just so hard. So I want you to know that you'll drive past and go, there's the Mountaineers. There's the Mountaineers. Please read how to get there, okay? All right, so if you come here, this is a different river. And those of you that are live streaming, you'll need to find us on Facebook. We will Facebook Live. I'm not sure that we'll be able to do live streaming because so far we don't have a hard connection. It takes a hard connection to do what we do here, and we won't have that yet. So stay tuned, but we will always be live on Facebook. Just trying to let you know, things are happening. Now, here's what I've learned. These things drive people. These are two opposing forces. Now, See if it happens in you. There is a force, a desire, a drive for stability, security, and an anchor. There's an equal and opposite drive for variety, novelty, new, and different. They don't go together well. So what happens is that people want their exteriors to be stable while they try new things. It happens, I'm not going to, just use your imagination. It often plays out in people wanting to go out and try new things and yet have their organizations and their institutions stay the same. So culture changes, but then we get upset when people try to change the trappings of the culture. We want that to stay the same. And that doesn't really work very well. For me, my shifting anchor is to take my anchor away from form and into the formless. I'm just saying I need to go into the formless and the consciousness of the thing. The consciousness of the thing. Something happened to me, and I trust the consciousness of CBEC. I've watched new people show up and go, CBEC, it's a camp. 200 people. 200 people. What are we going to? I mean, I watch them get all panicky, and I'm like, Zen, CBEC, oh. Because I trust the consciousness will work through the people no matter what they're going through. Something great will happen because perfection has been reached in that kind of consciousness. I trust it. My anchor is now in the formless, at least when it comes to that particular camp. And the same is true with what we call the Center for Spiritual Living. I don't put my faith in the form, I put my faith in the formless. Almost 100 years ago, 97 or 98 years ago, a little tiny woman named Netta Holmes decided that she was going to start us a metaphysical healing center in Seattle. Now, how many of you are anywhere familiar with women's history? Think of what it was like in 1920s for a woman who wanted to start an organization, especially a spiritual organization. Wasn't happening much. She was not going with the flow. She was creating the flow. There was no stream to support her. And yet she stayed with it for 39 years, created a consciousness of healing and empowering people to heal. And then she passed it on to Reverends Malone, Woods, and Munson, and finally myself. The consciousness moved from place to place. It started in downtown Seattle, moved to Ballard, moved farther north in Ballard, moved to 2 locations in the Northgate area, and still that consciousness continued on. It is the consciousness of healing, empowerment, and the revelation of people's goodness. We are that consciousness. One of the things that I loved to hear while I was at CBEC, because people start to share, is I heard from one teen that he's not the same as when he first showed up. He's not the same. And he wouldn't even be here. He would not be here on this earth if not for these teachings. When we were having our deep conversation with the Inward Journey students, or I should say graduates, what I heard is from one person is they too wouldn't be here without this place. But it wasn't the place, it was the consciousness. that the stream that flowed through them, that allowed them to choose to be here. And I won't tell their story, but if you knew their story, most of us don't have to deal with what they deal with in that storyline, and that stream carried them. See, I just need to say this little thing about river, and I have to because out of nowhere I picked up this one article, and there it was, this huge revolutionary for me story, which is about the Hopi Indians. The Hopi Indians actually believe that their ceremonies, their tradition, and their practices keep the earth healthy, or as healthy as they can get it. Now, we need to be praying for the Hopi Indians, because they have actually taken the responsibility to bless the earth so that it can recover from what other human beings are doing to it. Now, that's amazing. But they gave a prophecy in the year 2000, and what they said is, everything's going to be speeding up. Everything's going to be speeding up. The river is going to flow, and it's going to flow very fast, faster than human beings are used to. And there are going to be people that are afraid of the speed of change. And they said the only way to survive and not suffer, now you can survive and suffer, but if you want to survive and not suffer, is you need to get into the middle of the river, and there you'll celebrate with other brave people who are in the middle of the river. And if you stay on the shore, you're going to get buffeted by waves that you didn't know about. And so they said, don't stay on the shore. Stop clinging to what is and jump into the change. And then you will celebrate with other brave people. Makes sense. And I thought, well, that's perfect. That's perfect because we're in the middle of a big change. And we can resist it, which is futile, or we jump in because the river is consciousness. The river is consciousness. And sometimes, I know you don't maybe not do stupid stuff like me, which is sit around and contemplate the nature of things. I'm so boring. But I sometimes look at things and try to perceive what's behind the things. And that consciousness of healing and empowerment that has flowed through this property for 20-some years will influence this property for just as many years. Isn't it interesting that God had Children's Hospital choose to be in this place? That of all the people that wanted this property, Children's Hospital bought it, and they are a healing institution. And this will be their training center, because what they realize is that they can never be big enough to treat all of the children in Washington. So doctors and nurses from all over the Northwest will come here to be trained in all of the discoveries that they're making at Children's Hospital. And they will empower them. They will empower them to take the healing consciousness out. Now that's just too freaking wonderful. I think about it, it's like, I can't, what? How perfect is that? That this shore will have another healing, empowering consciousness flow through it as we take our healing and empowering consciousness down the road. Literally. See, rivers can be diverted. We are being diverted, but a river still continues to flow. We're going to be diverted for a short time at the Mountaineers, and then we'll be diverted someplace else. But it's the consciousness that is us that will continue to bless wherever we are and wherever we touch, whatever neighborhood. It's that is the power and is the truth of us. Just like the truth of you is eternal and everlasting, and you will lay this body down, and you will lay down you will bury some of your family and friends, and yet that which is everlasting won't be touched. Consciousness goes on. So I want to add my vision to what Netta Holmes had. Netta Holmes wanted a healing center, and she wanted to empower people to do prayers so that they could heal others. And I want to just shift it just a tiny bit. I want the consciousness of CSL and the fact that we are becoming impermanent for a moment. I want that to be a lesson to us to expand and not be place-centric. We say that we're a center for spiritual living, and I'd like you all to be a center for spiritual living. You a center for spiritual living. You don't go to the center for spiritual living. You are the center for spiritual living. At CBEC, we had evening prayers, and I started working with people to know that to start saying that I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where healing shows up. I am the place where good shows up. I'm that place. I am that. I am that I am. I am that I am. And so when we know that, we allow ourselves to be the tributary of a great idea in the mind of God that all people are created in its image and likeness, and that we can allow ourselves to know that for ourselves and for others. It's the for others that will be new for us. Not we go and get, we go, we flow, we celebrate, and we take it out into the world, not proselytizing, but actually being a center of divine operation, and soul to soul, consciousness to consciousness, we will awaken others. So that this riverbed becomes a delta, spreads out. We do it. And you know, and some of you are like, oh no, I come from a background where they went out in twos. I don't know if I like this. Anyway, actually, that was my background. I don't know if I like it. But it's not about saying anything. It's about being something. And I have 3 ideas on how to be it. It won't hurt you. They're incredibly simple ideas that are hard to do. They're like those child-proof caps. You know, you take this, it's a child-proof, this will be really simple. It's simple and hard. These are the 3 ideas. The first one, be two-faced. Don't go out of here saying that, but what I mean by that, and we really try to practice it in practitioner class, is listen to someone. Understand or as much as you can what they're going through, because we'll go through stuff. Have compassion. Listen deeply. But know at the same time that there is a spiritual aspect of them that is wanting to be revealed, and that they have more resources within them than they are aware of at this time. There's a resource. It might be for a physical healing. It might be for a glorious transition. We don't know. But God is always present everywhere. And there can be a time when we can move into someone's story so much that we forget that God is present. I'm not asking you to tell them what so. There's some good in this shit, I'm sure. Nobody wants to hear that. Let's just look for the good in the shit. Don't say anything. Just in your own mind, perceive their wholeness. That means you look at them, but you don't look at the body, you don't look at the story, you look at the wholeness of them. See, we think we live in our body, no, our body lives in us. So perceive the bigness of them. Just look as though they were so much bigger than what's going on. Emerson said, what is inside of us is so much greater than what's going on before us. Know that for somebody. And when you do that, you are in agreement with their highest self, and where the two or more are in agreement on earth, it shall be done on earth as it is in heaven, and heaven is harmonious. You could be calling forth harmony at all times. Somebody's chattering away and you're going, not saying a thing except expecting grace to happen. Expect grace. Number 2, give equal time to prayer that you do to complaining. Oh, says a lot. And if you don't complain, then pray anyway. It really occurred to me last week when I wanted to move into complaining because I didn't like the air either. You know, it was messing up my sweet Seebeck experience. And then it's like, well, then pray, girl. How, you know, who's contributing to the shift? And besides that, as soon as I decided that I was going to pray, I was like, I moved into such gratitude. I have a home. I'm not a critter that's habitat has been destroyed for the next 200 years. And when you're grateful, it's so easy to pray for others. So prayer ignites gratitude, which ignites more prayers, which ignites more gratitude. I think, I don't know, it started to mist right after that. I think our prayers had effect. I really do. But it doesn't matter. What is your job? Your job as a spiritual being, as a center for spiritual living, is to think spiritual things about anything. And the spiritual reality about anything is that there's a good waiting to happen. Then, this is the last thing. Tell your healing, empowering story. If you've been empowered, if there's been a shift, talk about it. Share it with others. I was moved when I would hear people and how they had shifted and what they'd gone through and what they are going through and their inner strength. That gave me strength. This is how the 12-step program moves. There's some rules, there's 12 steps, and there's some ideas and some guidelines, but basically it's sharing with sharing and with sharing. And it doesn't mean that you say, come to my church. It just means I've gone through something similar. And I got through it, and I'd love to hold your hand while you do, or however you would say it, or just simply say, I feel better than I used to. Or say, I believe that our country will come together because we're seeing the effects of division, and we're getting sick and tired of it. And I believe that we will wake up. I believe we will wake up. Because there's some people that don't think we'll wake up. I think we'll wake up. And I think we'll vote awake. I think sometimes the people in this room, including myself, don't know how vital, important, and rich this teaching is. But I've gone to other countries and I will be going to Mexico for the 3rd time next summer. And people in other countries lap this up because it's not available. This is shifting people's lives But I think what happens is we understand it. We get it. And it still stays in our head. I'm asking you to let it be in your very breath. And the way that you walk, the way you listen, and the way you speak. To be the place where God shows up. Not just a song, but be the place where hope shows up. Be the place where faith shows up. Be the place where light shows up and love and understanding and truth. Be that. Because that's what you can be anytime you say, I'm in. But you have to say, I'm in. And it's much more fun. I've discovered that by putting God first in my life, I very seldom pray for anything anymore. And before I ask, it's there. It is so grace-filled. This is not about giving up. It's about really giving in to the givingness of God by being the place where God shows up. Who's in? Then let's pray. I give thanks in this moment that each and every one of us can relax into our chair, and if we choose, relax into that deep, passionate, fiery center within ourselves that is the place where the divine rests within our soul. We are the place where God shows up. We are clothed in a physical form. We have a history. We have beliefs. We put it all around ourselves, and yet we are the place where God shows up. And so I give thanks that for each and every person here who chooses, we can say, I will show up more fully as the divine expression of magnificence that I am in the wonderful way that I can do it. For those of you that choose, you can make a covenant within yourself to see the divine being before you, no matter what their story is. For each and every one of us that chooses, we can be about prayer, about bringing into existence that which can be by saying, let there be. I give thanks that we can be the place where others feel blessed and loved, and they don't even know why, because we are the place where God shows up. And so now, from that place of knowing that we are the place where God shows up, I speak my word for all of us as we bless this place. And we bless the owners. And we bless the doctors and the nurses and all the staff that will be trained here. I give thanks that God has a fabulous idea for this property. That children and children's children and children's children will be blessed in this place because of our prayers today. For I establish in this place a healing consciousness. I speak my word that people will come and be empowered to know that God will use them to bring life to children, whether they know it's God or not. God doesn't care. Life will happen because of this place and because of our prayers. So in your mind, because you have the power to do it, you are the place where God shows up. Speak your word of blessing for this place. The consciousness that will be established in this place. And now, because you are the place where God shows up, bless the consciousness that is the center for spiritual living as it moves slowly upstream to a new shore. And we will bless new neighbors. And we will have new experiences, but the consciousness of healing and empowerment will continue on. And now, because you are the place where God shows up, bless everyone else who is the consciousness where God shows up. Let us be a delta, spreading out and giving life, giving hope, giving faith to so many, without words, without proselytizing, just by being. And I'm so grateful for the mighty work that God did, does, and will always do. And so it is.